Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today, I'm really excited to have on Harmonie O'Loughlin. Welcome to the show, Harmonie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, and I'm excited to get to know you a little bit more. We're going to talk about a few projects you're involved with. One is the Botanical Anthology magazine. Looks like you also have a herbal products business, Flora's Feast, and then the Instagram account and overarching company, I want to say, is the Plant Wonder Collective. So we'll delve into all of those.
Awesome.
But first, I'd like to get to know you a little bit more. What's your herbal origin story? How'd you get into herbalism?
Yeah. So I would say to really go far back, I became interested in health and wellness in high school, and at that time, I grew up in a city. So it was really like, don't eat the white bread, and exercise. And so it was always in my mind. And most of my career prior to having my daughter in 2018 was in the natural products industry and working mostly for organic food companies. But my start was at a broker. And so these natural food and organic food companies hire these sales and marketing companies to go out and help sell for them and have kind of the feet on the street. And so I worked for a few of those, and it really exposed me to many different brands, both on the food side and on the body care, health and wellness side. And so for me, it really started with the food, but then I evolved much more into that alternative to pharmaceuticals side of things. And so when I really decided to dive into that, it actually started with a tea blend. And so I had started to date someone, and we were both cancers. And so I bought him this loose leaf cancer tea blend because he liked tea and I thought it sounded cool. And I remember I had never had loose leaf tea like that before. And I remember being mesmerized by like brewing this mason jar of tea and like watching the herbs swirl and the color change. And I just thought it was so cool that now this glass of water became medicinal. And also at that time, his parents had an in-law apartment in their home, and the tenant was a nurse who was taking an apprenticeship with Gail Faith Edwards of Blessed Main Herb Farm. And so through conversations with her out in the garden, I really became interested in the plants. And so I lived in Boston, and I came across the Boston School of Herbal Studies. So I did an apprenticeship there. But that very same month that I started a new job that, in sales that had me traveling quite extensively. Most weeks I was gone, and, just one of those lifestyle jobs that you work after dinner and you work whenever you need to get your work done. And so, so I had in my mind, I loved the making of things during the apprenticeship. I loved the study, but I also enjoyed the parts of our apprenticeship when we would be in the kitchen and working with them directly. And so it was always in my mind. But over the course of those years, I really focused on my sales career. And I also became very into gardening. And so there were always medicinal plants in my garden. And I would make things for myself, for my family and friends. But it didn't go too much broader than that for a long time until I had my daughter. And then heavy nesting phase, right? And I was reading all sorts of books about birth and postpartum. And so I created this whole slew of recipes for me, some for pregnancy, but mostly, and a little for birth, but mostly postpartum, and also for my baby. And also, I couldn't go back to what my job had been because I couldn't travel like that anymore. I wanted to be with my baby. And so I evolved that role with my company to do project work for the person who replaced me, very part-time. And then I started Florist Feast. And so I used all the recipes I had created for pregnancy, birth, postpartum, baby care, and largely with the herbs that I was growing in my garden. And so I was making them, and so that was the step into actually having herbs be part of my career.
Would you say your postpartum regimen was successful, and was herbalism a part of all that?
Mm-hmm. I do think that if I hadn't had herbs as part of my experience, things would have been more difficult. I had healing from the physical aspect of it, also the emotional aspect hormonally. I mean, things really shift from pregnancy, from the birthing process, if you nurse, and also continuing on the nursing trajectory. I think that was probably like long term the most impactful for me for herbs. Like when you're in the moment of postpartum, my gosh, it's like I felt like I lived a year in every day. Wow. But when I look back, it wasn't that long, but my nursing experience extended through several years, and herbs really helped me with that when inevitably there are clogged ducts and maintaining supply and all of that. So I think they were really pivotal, and I also learned at how little support there is for women in that time. And so I felt like sharing the recipes through my products was that little way that I could help, from afar. I didn't, especially at that time with having my own baby to care for, I didn't really have much time myself to give to other people except make a meal when a baby was born. But after having gone through the experience, I have one child, so I didn't do it again. But if I had, there's so many more layers I would add on to the regimen because I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I liked being able to help. And at one time I had actually thought that I might become like a lactation consultant and a doula and really build all of my herbal work kind of in that birthing realm. And I recently watched this documentary. My daughter's school nurse rented a local indie movie theater, and we watched this documentary called In Utero. And it was about just like babies in the body feeling the experiences of the mother and the world around them, very succinctly describing it. But
right.
And it was sort of reigniting that bit of fire of how much an affinity I have towards the importance of that time for the mother and the baby. And so I do miss that. Some of my work has evolved a little bit away from that, but I've just been kind of thinking about what other ways I could maybe incorporate that in my life, because it's very much a passion of mine.
Well, I do want to ask you later on how you juggle it all already and adding on that component. Wow. Yeah, that'd be impressive. You mentioned the magic that you noticed when you were watching the loose leaf swirl around in the mason jar. And I totally relate. When you first start getting into herbalism, everything is just so magical. And I'm just wondering, do you still feel that magic when you make tea, or is this why we as herbalists, we continuously hone our craft and continuously create new herbal creations to get that feeling of magic all over again?
Mm-hmm. I think, well, this is something that I think about herbs is it's kind of a lifelong journey. Yeah. I don't think you ever have one particular destination and then you're done, because I don't think it's necessarily ever evolving. Like a medical doctor might have to maintain, what new technology is happening or what new pharmaceuticals do or something like that. I think herbalism evolves because herbs can work differently for different bodies. And so, especially if you're a clinical herbalist, which I am not, but I think you're just always learning about how plants affect people. as a person, a family herbalist, you learn how they affect yourself or how they work for your family and which ones are best based on your constitutions. And it could be totally different for your child who's half you. And, and I think there are so many plants out there too. And so you can always learn and fall in love with a new plant. And it might be for a season, but it might stay with you too. And recently, I think, just from the tactile experience again, I was making several batches of tea, and now I'm trying to remember what I was making, but I usually steep like a jar overnight. And so I remember I was lining up my jars for my infusions that were going to steep overnight. And I watched how one blend, like this one, the herbs were sinking, and then the other one was floating. And I was just thinking about, wow, isn't that so interesting? Like not every herb is sinking. Like this one, like sometimes they float all the way to the top, but this one hung in the middle actually. And I thought, how is it just like suspended there in the middle of water? And so, I think that's really interesting.
Totally.
Maria, who has done, maybe you worked with her at Herbal Academy. She did a video, with Mountain Rose Herbs. She did a video with them about the intermediary method of making tinctures but especially infused oils. Not tinctures, infused oils. And you grind the herbs up and you put a little vodka and you let it steep. And then for like a day, like just like damp herbs. And then you add your oil. And I think, you can look up the video for her particular way she continues on. And by you, I mean the audience.
Yeah, I'll try to remember to leave a link to that video in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, that'll be great. And so it was so interesting to me to look at one batch with that method versus the batch before without it. And how like my mind was trying to grasp, like, but I steeped the herbs longer. Yeah. And so how is this color so much more vibrant? But like just that bit of like how the vodka helped extract and the different constituents that can come from that secondary versus what can be extracted by the oil. And so I think there's in every facet. So long story short, in every way that you can work with herbs, there's always something new to learn, how it affects the body, a new plant, how to work with them and how they respond to these different methods. So well said. I loved everything. Yeah. Amen to that. I'd love to hear more about your herbal mentors, whether that was at the Boston School of Herbal Studies or more. I just always love hearing folks' lineages. Yes. So are there any other herbal teachers you'd like to shout out in your herbal journey? Well, I brought some props. Oh yeah. I wasn't sure what we'd talk about. So sure. I grabbed a few things as I was in my mind, what might I talk about? What might I ask? What might he ask me? Yeah. So I did already mention one. So yes, the Boston School of Herbal Studies, I spent 9 months with those folks. And then also, so that was Madeline Hope and Tommy Priester. And then they had additional weekend courses that I took. So I did palmistry twice, actually, because I loved it. And aromatherapy with Linda Patterson through the school. Melanie Rose Schofield did classes in the Boston area too. So those were early folks that I worked with. And then I mentioned Gail Faith Edwards. Yeah. And so I did one course at her farm. It was about, was it just roses or the rose family? I'm forgetting. But I think she has an affinity for that family like I do. And so I made the trek up to Maine. And I just love this book. I actually have 3 copies because I have my original and I thought I lost it. So then I bought the next one. And then she did an updated sort of second edition. And so I have that one too. And this was definitely for a long time the book that I would I have a thing. I look what Gail says, and that's what I did. And this behind me is just one bookcase of my herbal books. And so I have like not just herbal books, but I have many other shelves of of books in other parts of my house. And so I found over time now my studies, because through Plant Wonder Collective, which we'll get to, I focus on a particular plant rather than a usage occasion. And so I get all my books and I read all of them that have that plant in it. And sometimes it is almost every book, depending on what the plant is, And so I read from a lot of different authors, some new, some old.
Just a quick break from the show to thank our presenting sponsor, Oshala Farm. Oshala Farm is a beautiful and vibrant certified organic herb farm based in Southern Oregon, where they grow and sell over 80 different plant species. The founders, Elise and Jeff Higley, have been longtime friends, so I highly trust their growing methods and ethics. You'll love the potency and vibrancy of all the herbs they have to offer. To learn more and purchase their herbs and other organic goods, head to oshalafarm.com. So thanks once again to Oshala Farm for sponsoring the Herbalist Hour. Now back to the show. Enjoy. That's a great way to learn individual plants, is just to pull out all your herbal books. And that's what herbalists love to do, is we love to collect herbalism books. Yeah. And then, just read about the plant in each different book. That's just a good way to learn about it.
And it's interesting that I've come to this place because Gail's apprenticeship, so I did not take it, but with that woman I mentioned earlier that did study with her, they did talk about you really focus on a plant for a whole year. And I thought, my gosh, that is going to take a long time. I don't know if I have patience for a whole year in just one plant. Like, I want more. Right. And so, 1 month, with Plant Wonder Collective, I feel like I'm like compromising with Gail,
Totally. Yeah. My friend Kyle Denton does an herb of the week. So 52 plants per year. So you could go week, month, year. I think, I would love to try learning a plant for 1 year. I could only imagine how intimately you would get to know that plant, but I like your approach. I would love to talk about the Plant Wonder Collective, how you do. I want to say your pinned post on your Instagram currently shows each plant for the associated month, but I'm just kind of curious. First of all, is your list for January, the upcoming January through December list, coming out soon? And also, in addition, how do you decide which plant to associate with the individual month?
So I mentioned how Florist Feast got started, right? So I started creating the mom and baby products, and then I get I started working with a local woman, Bad Axe Enterprises. I was living in Wisconsin at the time. I live in Western Mass now. And she helped develop labels, and we get the initial website launched. We didn't get the e-commerce part yet, but we get the initial website launched in February of 2020. And so then COVID hits. I have pretty much zero childcare. I have my part-time work at my previous company, and I'm trying to launch this product, and I have a little Leo that is 20 months or so, who is just wants every moment of me. And so I had to hold her for every nap. I had to hold her, and be in bed with her every night when she, and so I didn't have any time unless I had someone else caring for her. And so I couldn't be on the computer, continuing that work fully. And so I ended up just continuing to research and create more recipes for Florist Feast. So I did a facial line and kind of a women's female body self-care. And so I expanded the product line to be a little bit more applicable to people outside of just that small time frame. And then I was like, oh, wait, but now that I did that, what is my marketing strategy? Because now I have all these different subsets of places.
Right.
And so I started just doing, trying to connect to people, participate in little groups. And so that's really how Plant Wonder Collective started, was a way to help get more awareness for Florist Feast just to broader people who were interested in plants. And so we started as, and still sort of maintain being an Instagram group. And so I organize with all these women, and we have a plant of the month. And when I originally started, it was because I had to reach out to everyone, right, to invite them to join. And so I was very specific, like, would you like to write about a tea recipe for each plant? And would you like to write about a craft? And then over time, people's, lives shift and they phase out and new people want to join. And I thought, well, that's unsustainable to like fit people in a slot. And so, so now we just try not to have too much overlap with each other. People post what is inspiring to them about the plant and what they've learned about it. And so the Plant Wonder Collective handle is the repository of all of our work. And so there are highlights for all the plants we've done, because this March will be starting our 3 or 4 years. We have several years of plants.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning of the year, I do put out a list for the plants of the month, so the audience can see, and also so folks can kind of look ahead to their work, and then we dive in. And I have not released, this is a good reminder to me to release next year's plant list.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And add it to the list. And so the way I choose the plants is I tried to find a diversity of what can have medicinal qualities to it, but also be interesting to people who aren't solely focused on the medicinal part. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that might lean a little more towards culinary, a plant might more typically be culinary. Like we had dill this year, and the medicinal qualities, they exist, but they, what's generally reported and studied in the herbal world, is narrow. But I had that request from several people in the collective that they wanted to explore dill. And so I put it on the list. So I try to find that diversity between each month, and I try to pick plants that might be relevant to the month. So, we'll soon be going into December, and we'll have evergreen. The holiday is, the solstice, people are just really into evergreens. And this will actually be the first time we've ever repeated a plant. And the reason why I'm doing it is because it's a category. And so we did do it 2 years ago, also in December. But I think because there are so many different plants people could use, we did mushrooms this fall. I'll probably do that again because there's so many mushrooms. But other plants we kind of split up when they're like rose and elder, because there are different components to it depending on what part of the plant you're using. And so, so I just, kind of try to keep that in mind. Occasionally I've been a tiny bit off the mark. Like we did ginger in March one year. I think it was March or April. And I think people were like, I'm moving on to spring, and
right.
Maybe it's a little too feisty for that time.
Sure.
But, and one time, I think rosemary was one. People were like, why did you do this now? And I was like, wow, I didn't know rosemary would elicit such a response. I thought it was just kind of, I could plug that in when I had a little gap.
Can't please everybody.
Yeah. It was minor. It was just, it was just interesting to me that it was so important to someone to say something,
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I'm just curious, can anyone join? Or I know it's kind of a women-centric group, but if someone from the audience wanted to join the Plant Wonder Collective, is that still doable, or is it like maxed out right now?
Nope, it totally is. Actually, we haven't had too many new folks in a while. And, it's just like with the Botanical Anthology, it isn't that it's no men. It's just been, it's just like women are drawn to it, I guess. Sure. And then just the connections and circles. We've actually had 2 male writers for the Botanical Anthology, but And we have not had a man in Plant Wonder Collective yet, but maybe this will be the time now.
Your call out. I was also curious about does everyone have their own login, or do they just send you the stuff and then you post it?
Yeah, I do it all.
Okay. Phew. Yeah. That would be a headache otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it does take a bit of time, but the organizational part of my personality, I think it would be too many cooks in the kitchen, you know.
Not to mention you're jeopardizing potential hackers and stuff like that, and that would be a nightmare. But was there anything else you wanted to talk about the Plant Wonder Collective before we kind of shift gears and talk a little bit more about the Botanical Anthology?
No, I think a little will be part of it. A little bit is part of the story of how Botanical Anthology started, but I think we kind of covered the basics. If anyone's interested, they can just send me an email or a DM, and I can tell you about how it works and if that fits into your time and interest. But,
sure. Yeah. I should probably plug the handle. It's at Plant Wonder Collective, and there's over 7,000 followers, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, we just tipped
community.
over the 7,000 edge.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lots of people that I follow it. So definitely go give them a follow on Instagram if you're not already. Let's shift gears and talk about Botanical Anthology. What is this online? This is an online and print magazine.
Yes.
But why don't you tell us a little bit more about the story of that and what's inside?
Sure. So now I have my second prop.
There you go.
Unfortunately, the edition that just launched, my copy hasn't made it to me yet. So this is the autumn edition. So you can see pretty big. And I can
really pretty
a little bit more about that. But the way that the Botanical Anthology started was actually to step back even a little bit more from Plant Wonder Collective, just to continue to make broader connections for Flora's Feast, I started doing some writing for some publications, and I really enjoyed that. You know, I like the exploration of the ideas and how to work with plants and the educational part of it. And also, I was thinking about how much content all of our members are creating for free. And that, you know, wouldn't it be nice to get paid?
Right.
And so I thought, well, why don't we create some little guides or booklets just that we can all sell and, you know, just make a little money. And so we launched a holiday handmaking handbook 2 years ago for the holiday season. And so it was gifts, ways that you could work with plants to make gifts for adults, for children, and how to wrap or adorn or, you know, gift your gift. And then I instantly dove into, because we had a lot of fun doing it and I enjoyed the process, making a Valentine's booklet. And so again, gifts for your partner, for a galentine, a palentine, which were for dudes, you know, and
yeah, totally.
Children, and then there was desserts and drinks, and so it was kind of covering the different facets of Valentine's Day. But what I learned from the two of them was that it's hard to meet people in a moment, right when it's a holiday, and then it's done.
Yeah.
And so the idea for the magazine came to mind. I was writing, and I still do write for this magazine called Willow and Sage. And at my local food co-op, you know, there's always the Herb Quarterly, which was just this sort of black and white, very educational, but not as visually stimulating. And so I thought, what if I mash them together? You know? Totally. So the inspiration was like making something that's really beautiful, accessible, digestible, and inspiring. And so it you know, inspires people to carry on their own studies beyond the pages, but you can really be in the world of plants by being in these pages. And so we launched the magazine. And so the first edition was summer of 22. And I knew that I had to expand it beyond people who were just in the Plant Wonder Collective. And it's interesting to look back on that because it was really cozy with our little group together. And yet it's also really cool to meet and work with new people additionally. So, I think at this point I've worked with close to 80 or 100 different people to write for the magazine. This winter edition that launched just a few days ago is the 7th. And we started as just digital, but then over time, we had so much demand for print, but yet we don't have enough demand for a print run with a printer. And so for now, we are using Amazon's print on demand program. The goal long term is to figure out other strategies to adjust that so we can also offer subscriptions, but like digital, we have digital subscriptions, but offering print subscriptions. But for now, that's how people can gain a printed copy like this one. So it's really thick and it's full page. It isn't, you can kind of, I have Gail's book here still, so you can see it's almost as thick, but also quite a bit bigger. So there's a lot of content. It runs anywhere from 125 to 175 pages, just depending on how each edition turns out. And like I said, full pages. We have 7 subsections. So we have, of course, the apothecary, which is internal and external recipes, self-care, body care, medicinal. Then we have the kitchen. And so that can be food, desserts, or sweets. So savory, sweet, and then also beverages. And that can range from, something like a shrub to a mocktail to a cocktail. Then we have the harvest section. And so that is thinking about gardening, foraging, just thinking about the growth of plants. Mm-hmm. Then we have craft. And so that is projects that can range from things like dyeing and eco-printing. Our first 4 editions had how to draw a plant step by step. And sometimes there are projects for children too, but most of them are for, geared towards thinking about adults in mind. And then we have folklore. So that's largely, kind of the histories and stories and fables of plants. So we have a series we've been going for the last few editions of a full moon teas. So it lines up teas that match to the energy of the full moon and that particular moon's, what sign it's in. So we can kind of in perpetuity keep this column because it's always changing.
Right.
And like I said, we dive into different plant histories and energies. Then we have celebrate, and that's the nature-based holidays. I try to keep it secular. But, we'll dive into the solstices, equinoxes, the 4 cross-quarter observances. But then some seasons like this one, we have a New Year's article. We have several Valentine's articles. So, we kind of keep those cultural ties in mind too. Like our spring edition will probably have something, it might have something for St. Patrick's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, things like that. Sure. And then the last one section is called Viewpoint. And that's one that I have been trying to enhance a little bit more. So we have a main feature interview. This round is with Kayla from Under a Tin Roof. But we also have several smaller interviews. We have a conservation corner. This time is with Linda Black Elk. We also have, she is Community Voices. I'm sorry. Linda is with that. And so that has to do with BIPOC, LGBTQIA+. Mm-hmm. And then we have the conservation corner, and that's someone focusing on the conservation of plants. I highlight a Plant Wonder Collective member. We have, I started including essays, And we always do book and podcast reviews, which I didn't tell you, but you're in this one.
No way. Thank you. That's awesome. Was it a good review?
Would you like me to read it to you?
Yeah, go for it. Is it?
Okay.
Yeah, please.
And I have to say, because before we were starting, I just reread it now. And she talks about the Herbalist Hour. And I did not, for the record, I did not tell her that we were talking. So,
oh, wow. All right.
Plug in for that part. So with over 700 episodes, the HerbRally podcast has grown to encompass a wide range of herbal topics. Host Mason Hutchinson has hosted numerous experts, as well as provided class recordings, monographs, and more. Recently, the podcast is focused on hour-long discussions with prominent herbalists. That's why I felt like I had to say I didn't prompt her. I wasn't putting myself as a prominent herbalist.
Awesome.
With prominent herbalists in a series called the Herbalist Hour. These discussions, while guided by Mason, are led by each guest, allowing for a heartfelt, informative discussion following the guest's passions. Not only is it easy to appreciate the informational value of this podcast, but the style makes it very entertaining. Mason has a calming voice and gently guides the discussion in a way that is reminiscent of a relaxing conversation between friends. Grab a cup of tea and curl up with this great podcast.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for reading that. And wow.
Yeah, that's by
who wrote that
Marcy,
again? Jess Marcy. Thank you for that.
Old,
lovely
Old Wisdom. What does she put after? I always know her as Old Wisdom. Old Wisdom Wellness, I think it is.
Okay. I'll have to reach out to her and say thank you for that. So
yes.
Oh man, I feel great. Thank you. I was going to ask you about these different subjects. You just went over a bunch of different categories. So it sounds like you do each of these categories in each edition, or at least somewhat like kind of loosely follow that.
Nope. Every edition has those same 7.
I love that.
Subsections. And so, I mean, I don't know if I can get it all on my screen here.
And dear listener, if you don't know, we release each of these episodes on YouTube as well. So there's some visuals going on right here. So
yes, we are looking at each other and interacting as humans.
That's right. Exactly. Harmonie's currently showing us the inside of the magazine. So
yes. So I have those subsections because I felt like, well, I was kind of observing from a lifestyle perspective, what are all the ways that you might work with plants? So of course, in your kitchen, in your apothecary cabinet. But then I was thinking, like I said, I'm a big gardener. So of course that would be part of it. And then I thought, well, dyeing has become such a big thing in the plant world. Right. And so but there are so many ways to craft with a plant. Yeah. And folklore for me was really about like thinking of the format of a magazine where you want to sit and read an article.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need a project attached to it per se. And Celebrate is, part of something I've kind of been learning from a lifestyle perspective as an adult, of just more, like I said, I grew up in a city. So my touch point was with nature was summer camp,
right.
And I mean, I had a backyard, but we weren't gardeners. And so working in the garden and observing the seasons and kind of living seasonally is, very intertwined for me with the plants. And so, so I felt like that needed to be there. And then the viewpoint section was really thinking about elevating the voices of different people in the community who work with plants.
Very good.
Yeah.
So this is quarterly.
Yes.
So when is the next issue coming out then? And what's inside?
Yes. So the winter edition is available now. It just launched. Yes. And through December 14th. So our editions are always available. But what we do at the launch period for the first 10 days is lower the price by $5. So it's available for $18. And also if you're on our newsletter, there's always a $2 coupon at the time.
Nice.
And
so when you say $5 off, is that for both the print and digital version?
Oh, thank you. Just digital. Yeah.
Okay,
Amazon,
gotcha.
Yeah. Amazon doesn't really allow for a lot of things, including sales.
For sure.
But you can see how the price will shift, and they have some algorithm that I've inquired about. You just get the token answer, like the whatever they put out there.
Right.
But your algorithm does all sorts of things. So occasionally the price might look differently than what we listed as, and that is just Amazon.
You have the whims of Amazon. Right.
I mean, it's beneficial to me when they do it, but I have no say. So during this first 10 days on the digital, we offer, it's always available at $23. We lower it down to the $18 plus the $2 coupon, but we also always offer a bonus booklet. And so in the homage to Plant Wonder Collective, we usually dive into a plant. And so for this round, it is ginger. And then I thought, well, there's so much craziness happening at this time of year. Maybe we should add a second bonus, 'tis the season. So I came up with this idea for an herbal cookie tray. And so there are 11 recipes to put herbs into your bakes, or, and it's not all just baked goods. Like we have citrus peels that are candied in like a syrup that has plants in it, and so you can make this beautiful spread. And this is one of those moments where I really wished, if we were bigger and we had this like kitchen and we could actually have made a picture with all of these yummy things together. But,
Totally.
That's not feasible. But so for this round, so they're the two bonus booklets. So the All About Ginger and the Herbal Cookie Tray. And again, those are available for purchase later, but right now they both come for free. And I also put together with a friend that helped my friend Julia, A Farm to Keep. She helped put together a gift guide with me. And so it's linkable. And so we have coupon codes from many contributors. We have book lists, gift basket ideas for, the budding herbalist or the kitchen witch or the tea lover, for example, like all the categories that we have in the magazine. And so it kind of helps stimulate some ideas, and then also getting the discounts from if there are contributors that you love from the magazine, then you might be able to buy some of their products on deal.
I don't know if I asked this or if you already mentioned this, but if someone does buy the print edition, is there like a way do you also include the digital with that as well?
I don't include
separate?
The digital.
Okay.
Though I guess if someone sent me a copy of their, a screenshot,
like the receipt or something.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I can easily send it to them. But the big thing about the digital is, so with Amazon, I do not get customer data or information. So I have no idea who purchases it, but I have a little blurb right in the front, which does have I can show it for the people watching on YouTube, but you can see there's sort of the contact info.
Okay.
And so it tells you which bonus booklet was attached to this edition. And so if you email a screenshot of your purchase, then I just forward them the digital bonus booklet. So it does still come with the bonuses, but I just need you to reach out to me so I know who you are.
It's fun to have a physical copy. I have to imagine, though, if someone wants to support you and the other herbalists' work as far as like financially, I bet you the digital way is probably the best way to do that. Okay.
Yes. Yes, Amazon does not do anything for free, right?
Right. Yeah, you're probably making $1 each copy on Amazon or something like that.
A little more than that, but you're not that far off.
Okay. Well, yeah, it'll be fun to watch the magazine grow and eventually maybe be able to do like a larger print run, and then hopefully the profits go up for you on that. But
yeah, I have a lot of ideas and it's working through them. I do, most of the work myself. I do have so that's from fielding applications, reviewing them, sort of curating the content, editing articles, creating the layout, making marketing materials. I mean, the accounting, like everything. But I do have two people. I hire a graphic design, a freelancer to do a final pass to just make sure anything I missed. Yeah. And then I also historically have hired a freelance copy editor too. So that person can reread the articles as well after I've worked with the contributor, and be the grammar police and that sort of thing. And so I started with someone at the beginning whom wasn't in the herbal world, and her work was shifting and she couldn't stay on the project. And a contributor is a freelance editor. So her name is Anna. Her social media is the Herbology Fairy. Oh, yeah. And she has started working with me a bit more even though we launched for each season, the calendar isn't even in for 25% of the circle,
Right.
So from autumn to winter is very condensed because of the holidays. So we have to launch several weeks early, and that's not built in typically to my schedule. It does make for creating spring a little calmer, but sure. So Anna, was really helpful. She helped organize the layouts for the bonus booklets and helped with some of the marketing materials on top of doing the editing. So she is available for other projects too. If any herbal minded folks are creating their own written work and they just need someone for a single project.
Okay.
And she's available for that. She isn't, she's a mom with 3 young kids. So she's like when you need a plumber for a small thing and you cannot get anyone to come to your house because it's too small. Like, she's your editor like that, because that fits perfectly with her work. And so, yeah, I could not have done this edition without her, because it was just nuts between my daughter being sick several times and me getting sick and the shortened time frame. And thank goodness for Anna.
So she's an editor. Is she also a writer, or she primarily does the editing? No,
she's a writer too. So
wow.
She is a contributor to Botanical Anthology. She was before. Yeah. Before she did the editing. She then later joined Plant Wonder Collective. So she is a member, but she came to us first through Botanical Anthology. And then she also does seasonal tea booklets. So she has a Patreon. So she, she's kind of into that like cozy and cottage and hobbit core sort of style. And
hobbit core.
Yeah. And her tea booklets are available on her Etsy page, but also something on the Plant Wonder Collective website is so we have our Botanical Anthology subsection. I guess I didn't say this, but yes, you kind of alluded to Plant Wonder Collective is sort of the overarching, and the Botanical Anthology is a publication of Plant Wonder Collective. And under Florist Feast as like the really larger,
for sure,
really larger, because that's like my business technically is like that LLC.
Right.
But I also have a page on the website for all the contributors in each season who have digital products that they would like to sell. And so when you go to our website, which you can go to plantwondercollective.com or botanicalanthology.com, they both go to the same place. And so there's the Botanical Anthology shop, and there's the few Plant Wonder Collective products that we had put out, but then also the contributor downloads. And so we have winter's like solstice guide by Wineberry Adventure Scouts. We have Natural Wellness in the Home by Mama Labuela. We have Jen Campus _author. She is very into all of the nature-based holidays, and she actually has a guide for every month. And so we always post those. And so we do have, so I try to have that touch point of supporting their work when I can, beyond what's in the pages of the Botanical Anthology.
Where would you like to send folks to purchase the magazine?
Yeah, plantwondercollective.com is is great, but if Botanical Anthology is what you remember, that will work too.
There you go. Yeah, I simply Googled it and found it immediately, as well as the links to the Amazon editions as well. Before we move on, was there anything else you wanted to say about Botanical Anthology?
Well, since you mentioned it, in the product listing, when you said the link to Amazon, you can only buy digital through me, right? Like on the website. In there's the link that says you have to click the link to go to Amazon.
Gotcha.
And so it's hard for me to share that information with folks, but and occasionally people buy the wrong thing and I try to work with them to fix that. But
Sure.
but yes, the digital is through us, Plant Wonder Collective, but for now the print is directly through Amazon. Except for wholesale. I do offer wholesale pricing.
Oh, cool.
Which I kind of have to finagle a different way. But if people have shops or they go to, they have regular booths at markets and things like that, then they can definitely reach out to me. There's a little bit of a price adjustment for that. And I'm hoping that's what I'm hoping to make more accessible when we can actually do print runs is, to be able to really support being more in the herb shops across the country.
That'd be awesome to see. Yeah. What
a
I goal.
I do have some wholesale accounts, about 10 now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so,
congrats.
But we need to get Amazon's cut down a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. Jeff Bezos doesn't need any more money.
He doesn't need this money.
No. Let's put in the hands of the herbalists. Well, I did want to ask you, since you juggle so much, I'm just kind of curious if you have any advice for the aspiring herbal entrepreneur. You do so many different things, and I just figure you'd be a great person to ask.
Yeah. I think organization is really key with your time and with what you want to do. And I say that loosely, though. I don't think you need to be hardcore. I get into certain modes, like at the beginning of last year for my Florist Feast page. Oh, so I didn't say, so I actually, because I'm really focusing on the magazine now, I'm not making the physical products, but I have some of my own digital products. So in a blog, so I keep that website going and the social media page. But I believe in the value of, if you're asking people to support you financially, I like the two-way street of providing content. And so usually with the plant of the month, I'll have several posts about, with what I learned about it, plus projects to make with it. And so I created a whole social media spreadsheet. The entire year was ahead of me on what I could post.
Oh, wow.
And of course I still didn't totally follow it because life, I don't know, and sometimes social media is more important to me. And sometimes I've got actual real work in front of me, like creating the magazine. And so I just try to be really organized, kind of have systems set up with myself, but I definitely am not the type who's like, this hour I'm doing this project and this hour I'm doing that. So part of why I say that is really know thy work self and, and then when in your clear-headed mind, figure out how you can accomplish it with your work style. And so sometimes for me, that's just going with the energy, even if it's not, if there's a project that needs to get done, but doesn't really need to get done, and I'm really feeling an energy for something else, I just do that because I know I'm going to be quicker and more efficient and stronger at creating this other thing. And then I'll get back to that. Because then when I'm on a deadline, then I'll really get it done.
Oh, so I could so relate to that. I'll push the super important stuff to the very end, and then I'll be like, it's time to do it.
Yeah. Then you have no more excuses. I like to get the little projects off the list because I don't like the noise behind me of like, oh, I have this long list, but all of them are small. So let's just tick them off and then get me in my work mode.
Right.
and then I can dive in. Like, I feel like I can't sit and focus if I know I have too many other things to do, if this other project is longer.
Yeah.
So I've just really observed myself. And then, you know, for me, my previous life in my, before my daughter, you know, I just work until I get it done. And I am more of a night owl, maybe a little less after having her because I can't sleep until whenever I, you know, want to. But, you know, some people might wake up early and work. And so it's really, you know, trying to keep the energy up, because when I get done from laying in bed for an hour to get my gal to sleep, I've got to turn the computer on a lot of nights and keep rolling with it. But to me, that feels like a more worthwhile, it is work, but it's a more worthwhile use of my time than sitting and watching TV,
Right.
you know. And
Totally.
I'm still learning, I'm growing, I'm adding skills, I have forward progress. And the nights that I'm, you know, I don't watch TV that much, but I do some if I get into shows, you know.
Sure,
but,
totally.
You know, I might also be really into it, but I can get really addicted to books. And so if I'm like really into my book, you know, then I might skip a night working because I just want to read for a couple hours, and that's what I'm going to do with my time. And so I try to look at it as she's in school. And then I have, you know, from 3:00 until 8:39, that's usually otherwise occupied. And then I have those other couple of hours. And for me, that's at night. For some people, it might be in the morning. And so how do I want to use that time? And when do I take the downtime? You know, when I drop her off from school, I usually go for a hike. And sometimes it's hard to then be like, oh no, I use my work time. But also most days I really need that time to be out in nature, to be exercising, to feel like I'm strengthening my body and moving my muscles. And so, you know, then I've just got to get myself focused, and I can't hike at 9:00 at night. So
right. Rest is so important too, to get that energy to do the work you need to do.
Yeah, there is inevitably, this would have never happened to me before being a mom, but you know, I have the like high energy time periods. And then there are some nights I fall asleep with her and I wake up, I like passed out, you know, and I wake up and I'm like, it's 9:30. That means I was maybe sleeping for 45 minutes to an hour. If I get up now and do anything, I am up until 1.
Right.
If I like rebuild the energy. So it's not like lately I've actually just been like getting ready for bed. Like if I know it's one of those nights where I'm really tired and I probably am not going to be able to keep myself awake in the dark waiting for her to fall asleep, then I'm just going to be in bed for like 11 hours. And my body can't sleep straight through. I wake up and I'm up for a while in the middle of the night, but I just know my body needs to be in that downtime, even if I'm not sleeping the whole time, you know. And I know you can't catch up, but you know, it's part of my cycle. So I'm just kind of learning to go with those cycles of what I need to do, whether it's work or for myself, you know, my body and all of that. And so that's kind of how I manage it all. And when I'm really, really at the, you know, I kind of limit TV for her, but you know, I'm just going to do the normalizing plug for parenting. Like, you know, I don't use it most of the time, but when every edition, when I'm screaming into that launch date, she's giving some TV, you know, after school, and sometimes several days in a row, because I need that hour or two to keep going because, you know, but also I don't, you know, haven't put her in aftercare because I don't think, you know, in kindergarten, she is ready for that. And I still want to have the after school time with her. So that just means sometimes she gets a little extra TV. So I have a little free time, you know.
Thank you for your vulnerability there. No parent is quote unquote perfect.
No,
you got to do what you got to do.
I really learned early on, you know, I lived in this community, and then when I moved and I could really observe the people who were, you know, it was actually a very welcoming, loving community, but we're all human, right? And so, we all have judgments. And so like the people who were not into vaccines were like, you vaccinate? The people who were into gender, they're like, let's mix all the clothes at the clothes swap instead of separate, and like everyone has what I learned is everyone has their priorities. I can't match everyone's priorities.
Right.
What are mine?
Yeah.
And I know that I'm doing the best I can. And I have to live for what's most important to me. And I'm not saying I do that all the time. I'm just saying it's been something that through parenting, I'm learning that's really applicable to, for teenagers to seniors, that really it's, we're all doing our best and try to stick to what's really important to you to fulfill yourself.
I like that approach, and I like the know thy work self, but also just know thyself. So well said. It's been about an hour. I was hoping to ask you a couple more questions if you got the time.
I do.
Awesome.
I'm good.
Sweet. Well, you mentioned that you have a affinity for the Rosaceae plant family. And I was just hoping you could kind of go into why that is, and are there any particular superstar species in that plant family that you're fond of?
So interesting, because I feel like I heard you once say you always ask people. I thought maybe you would ask me 2 questions: if I consider myself an herbalist and what my favorite plants are. So I was in the shower this morning, like thinking about what I might say. So you're twisting it a little on me.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. When you said that earlier, I was like, oh, I got to circle back to that and ask her about it. So I did switch it up a bit.
Yeah. I had my answer planned for the other way. I think with the roses, several things. So I was born in June. So rose is my plant. And so I already knew that, like when you're young and, I'm not saying every girl is like this, but it's like, what's your, pearls are my stone and rose is my flower. And, those like things that you just like trying to find yourself and what things mean to you. And
totally.
And so I actually love pearls, too. I don't have my pearl earrings in now, but I do wear them often. And, so I grew up in Rhode Island. Like I said, in a city, but I would spend time in the summers at the beach. I had access to the beach. The few years I was in Wisconsin, and especially in COVID, when I couldn't get even just to the beach once in a year, to the ocean, I mean, not the beach, the ocean, which I learned was different. I felt landlocked, and someone said, there's Lake Michigan, like, right, not the ocean to me, even though it is a very powerful and beautiful body of water. But to me, I'm meaning the ocean. Yeah. And so I grew up going to the ocean. I still go every summer. And before I had roses in my garden, it was just like the merging of these these worlds for me, that I could forage roses by the ocean. I mean, it's just like this feeling, that's hard to describe. And I can observe the feeling in me and see what brings it to me. And picking roses by the ocean is certainly one of them. I like its affinity for love, and the heart, and healing the emotional heart and opening the emotional heart, and beauty. And I'm definitely more connected to the petals than the hips, but I do use the hips like very much throughout the winter in a lot of steeps that I'm doing. They're kind of like sort of the go-to of adding them and astragalus to, like, when I'd make gummies for my daughter, and, just that kind of, it's like kind of a base ingredient. And so I think that's why I love roses, and the whole family just sort of seems enchanting. Oh, and I should say, but the thorns and this is not anything I have made up, but it speaks to me of the way you can have your armor and your softness. And I think, I can definitely, especially through my sales career, if something starts going in an argument or something, if I'm feel like I'm in control of my how I'm like feeling in the moment, I'm like, and you cannot read me, you know?
Totally.
And so, you know, because I learned I just had to have a straight face. Now that I haven't done sales for a long time, sometimes the emotions start bubbling up a little, you know, and I'm like,
right.
rein it in, calm. But I love, you know, many other people will say it more eloquently than I will right now. But if you feel connected to this idea, I encourage you to read about the family having sort of the petals and the thorns. And
thank you for sharing
that symbolism. Yeah.
Are you a fan of hawthorn too?
I am, but that one is, I've never been able to have an in-person relationship with that plant. And so I don't think you collectively people need to see a plant or directly work with it to have a connection. I've observed for me, physically having a plant helps it sing more. And so it is a huge tree, you know, and not one that I've ever had enough open space that its shade would not compromise my garden. And so I've never planted one, and I've just haven't come across one in the wild or had a friend who had one, but my neighbor put in a little food forest, and so they're all mini, but they have hawthorns. And so he has assured me that the neighbors will have access to enjoying his food forest as well. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I love from the heart perspective, the berries, but probably my favorite I'm not going to declare this officially on the record, you know, but when I look at all the nature-based holidays, Beltane is kind of my favorite. And so it's near the top, you know, might be my favorite.
Yeah.
And so hawthorn flowers are really attached to that, like love and fertility and building of energy. And so I can see, like, in my life longer term, how hawthorn, especially the flowers, might continue to, you know, appear for me.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that. Well, why don't we wrap up? This has been great to get to know you a little bit more and hear about your various businesses and whatnot. Again, you could go to plantwondercollective.com or the @plantwondercollective on Instagram. I'll leave all these links in the YouTube description and show notes, of course. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Do you have any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I just want to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this group. And
Absolutely.
Thank you for your own work highlighting all the folks who are connected to plants and how they're sharing that with the world. So I love how, you know, like I was saying, Plant Wonder Collective is like this repository of our work, but I love that you're kind of this collective repository too of like the entire herbal community. So
we try.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for providing that for people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's what we're both doing, very similar work in different ways. So I love that. And it's going to be fun to watch you grow the magazine and everything. So dear listener, please go purchase a copy of Botanical Anthology. That'd be a huge help to, you know, what Harmonie's up to. And I would just really appreciate it if you did that. So thanks. Yeah. Thanks y'all for listening. And we'll see you in the next episode of the Herbalist Hour. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for watching today's episode of the Herbalist Hour. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more great herbal content, be sure to subscribe to our HerbRally YouTube channel. If you enjoy these Herbalist Hour episodes and you'd like to join us live, you can do so by becoming an HerbRally Schoolhouse member. Learn more at herbally.com/schoolhouse. And if you want to get your first 30 days for free, use coupon code YouTube30 at checkout. So our HerbRally Schoolhouse members get access to exclusive video classes, monographs, and a lot more herbal community discounts, along with joining these live Herbalist Hour interviews. So one more time, herbrally.com/schoolhouse. Enter coupon code YouTube30 at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, and take care.